our body is storing our emotions if we're not processing them. That was totally foreign to me. Not only was it foreign to me that we're storing emotions, it was foreign to me that there were feelings I wasn't feeling. Do not wait till the body is kicking and screaming because the emotions were stuck for so long or they start to spill over in symptoms. Don't wait for your body to have to get your attention in that way. And I promise you, it is so much easier to feel your feelings like right now than when a body is screaming from physical pain.
Welcome back to Mic'd Up. I'm your host, Mike DiCioccio, and today we have an absolutely inspiring guest joining us. She's a motivational speaker, a coach, a best-selling author dedicated to helping people heal and align with their highest potential. Diagnosed with MS at 12, she has been symptom-free for over 12 years and now inspires others to overcome their challenges. She's a marriage and family therapist, a podcast host, and she's on a mission to inspire others to live well and nurture their souls. Welcome to the show, Kaley Z.
Thank you so much, Mike. I'm so excited to be here today.
A little bit of backstory, guys. So Kaley and I we recorded back in August. It was right before I was making the move to Philly. And we had something recorded. I felt like we probably could have put it out, but there were some tech issues and stuff going on. And I was like, you know what? Let's redo it once I get into the Philly studio and I get everything built up, and we'll do it again. So I know that our first conversation, and I mean this from my heart, it was one of my favorite conversations, whether it was part of the podcast or not. I just really enjoyed talking with you and hearing your story, and it lit me up. Like, I was so inspired hearing what you did at such a young age. And so that's what I really want to start with, Kaley, is your early story. I know you've told your journey before, but I think this is amazing. Like, I want people to know your journey started. You were a CEO at 14 years old. CEO, which is just incredible, right? So I want you to share, like, what inspired you to take on such a big role at such a young age? I mean, that's a very rare thing. It's a cool part of your story.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I woke up one day and was like, oh, let me be a CEO. You know, it was really an unfolding and sort of just seeing a need and also my own capacity was kind of developing. So 2 years prior, when I was 12, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. And that obviously drastically changed my life and my world. And every day was different, you know? So I was living with symptoms of MS. That was incredibly challenging. Whether I was in a wheelchair one day or, you know, unable to see the next day, like every day was just different. And as I went through that journey and that process, I started getting involved in the National MS Society and some fundraising. And it was really beautiful that, you know, I was in 7th grade. So like, even this part is pretty mind blowing. The students around me rallied around me and also wanted to go fundraise and help raise awareness. And so this kind of snowballed. So for 2 years, I had a beautiful community, you know, raising money towards MS research, raising money to be able to share and spread this, spread awareness. So I started sharing my story. I started talking about, you know, everything I was going through in the hopes that others would recognize how lucky they are to be able to see, to be able to walk, to be able to go to the bathroom, to be able to speak. Like, these were challenges I had at different times throughout my time living with MS. And so I was speaking and sharing my story. And so this thing kind of took on its own momentum and kind of, it just built its own energy. And so when I was 14, I turned to a lot of the other students, kids, right? Other 14-year-olds who were helping with the fundraising and helping with the raising awareness. And I said, you know, something pretty profound is happening here. We were raising thousands and thousands of dollars and was like, this doesn't seem so small anymore. You know, what do you guys think? Like, what if we create our own thing? And it would give us, what was happening before is we were raising money for another organization, and it's an organization
because it already existed. So it was like,
right. And I appreciate like the National MS Society absolutely changed my life and they do amazing work. But then we didn't have any like seed funds to do different kinds of projects or focus just on the youth. And that's very different today. The National MS Society has really taken on a lot more focus on the youth, thanks to us.
That's incredible.
I will say that really transformed it.
You nudged them. You're like, hey, we want to take this to the next level and be more proactive, right?
Yeah. And see that kids have a voice and kids can actually make a huge difference. And at the time, there weren't that many kids with MS. That was very rare, but there were children of parents that, wanted to know what can they do? How can they get involved? And it was affecting their families. So maybe their friends' understanding was helpful. It just became this huge movement. And so at 14, it was a crazy experience. I remember we took a few months researching. Each person, we had a board of 15, 14-year-old, and each person had to research in this specific area and learn about what would it mean to start a nonprofit. And then we came together for a meeting and everybody gave their opinion if we should or we shouldn't. We put it to a vote and we voted to start our own nonprofit. So all of a sudden I was a CEO.
And these are all your friends from school.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man.
They're incredible.
It gives me goosebumps. Just how your support group, your friends, I mean, they rallied around you, right? And like, man, there's just so much I want to say about this, but I don't want to stop your story there.
No, it's so funny as you say that because I'm looking at the Sandlot right here on your screen. Oh, first of all, I love that you've got that there.
That's I don't know how different we are in age, but this movie was big when I was a little kid and inspired me to get into baseball. And like we recreated that playing ball in the yard and everything.
Oh, wow.
So I'm guessing when you were like 12, 13, the movie was already out at that point, right?
Yeah. So I remember going to see it when it was out in theaters with my cousins, and it just became one of my favorites. But the reason I'm like it's standing out to me is like, these kids in the Sandlot are like, they're just kind of hanging out, messing around, like let's go, like finding what to do with their time. And just to imagine that these 14-year-olds, and by the way, earlier, but this was the day that we like made it more official as its own organization. But they're spending their Sundays in board meetings, right? They're spending their evenings working on, planning fundraising events. And it's like, they could have been at the beach. We were in LA. There's a million other things they could have been doing.
Right. And it's for MS awareness and like, something that I think for a lot of 13, 14-year-olds may be difficult, like to get them not behind it, but maybe you can tell them, hey, we're going to do like a lemonade stand or something for a couple hours. And yeah, that'll be cool. Or we're going to raise money so we can go do something at homecoming on Friday night. But they're helping out their friend raise awareness for something that you were going through. And at the time, this is when it just happened, right? You were 12. So it was just a couple years into it.
Yeah.
I get goosebumps hearing that story. I'm glad that we got it. This time it's recorded. We're going to get it out to the world so people can hear it. But what I think is even more incredible, your friends got behind you, but you had the mindset at such a young age to say, I'm going through this horrible situation. I don't know what this looks like or what this is going to be or how long I'm going to deal with it or if I can ever get better or not. And I know we'll talk about what the doctors were telling you at the time because I know that wasn't real pleasant to hear. And your parents were obviously probably freaking out even more than you knew that they were. But you had the mentality at 12 years old, 13 years old to say, I'm going through this, but you know what? I want to help other people. Like, I think that's incredible because even as an adult, fully grown adult here in my late 30s, when stuff goes on and you got to take care of your family, a lot of times it does become a little bit difficult. Like, I'm going to help out someone else. I got to take care of my own stuff first. The reason I do this show, I'm not trying to say that what I'm doing here is anything like what you did when you were 12, but the reason I do Mic'd Up is to help inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their own dreams. Because whether I'm further ahead than someone who's listening or they're further ahead than me, it doesn't matter. Like, the reason for doing this show is to get out inspiring messages like yours and to just go and do it. Like, whether or not you can help someone, you're just connecting. And you don't always have giving. A lot of times people think it's the holidays as we record this. They think giving means money. Giving could just be your time. It could be listening. It could be supporting a friend. It could be hanging out at a meeting on a Saturday to listen to what your friend has to say. So I just think, man, it is so amazing that you were doing that at 12 years old. I think that's a very mature, way ahead of your years. And that says a lot about your parents too. But a lot of times people give credit to the parents, which is definitely deserving, but you got to give credit to the person. So I just want you to know, I know you're not here for a pat on your back, but I just think, man, how cool is that? And like the Sandlot, the group of friends got around Smalls and he was in a predicament, right? He accidentally lost Babe Ruth's ball and it was eaten by the beast and they didn't know if they'd ever get it back. And here you are, your friends rallied around you to get you through what your situation was. So I want people to understand a little bit more about what MS is and how there's so many varying experiences. Like my brother has MS and he doesn't really like to talk about it and stuff. And he may even be mad that I said this on air, but he's very reserved about it. And, but I just, because I love my brother and I love, have other people and friends and people that have been on the show that either have MS or have been going through different things. I really want to get the awareness piece out there. So what I'd like you to do, Kaley, is share the first experiences you had. I remember you mentioned losing eyesight and weren't your eyelids were kind of flickering, or I want you to share it in your words. And how you experienced that, how scary it was, and what your first initial like doctor appointments were like.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to wish your brother a lot of healing.
Thank you.
A lot of healing. And one of the
he's doing very well too. So he does his treatments and everything. It seems to be in his situation, he's doing pretty well. So I appreciate you saying that.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that. And yeah, that's part of it, right? Each case can be so different. And there are ups and downs. So I woke up one day at a friend's house. I was at a sleepover. I woke up and I was sick to my stomach. I was the first one awake in the house. So I sort of, I felt really nauseous. I was like, okay, I need to throw up. I need to get up. I need to go throw up, right? And then I realized I couldn't really get myself out of the bed. And it was just like, it wasn't that like I couldn't move at all. It was just like weird and awkward. And I just could not figure it out. And I kind of managed to somehow like crawl out just onto the floor. And then I was just crawling. And so I crawled into the kitchen. There was like a trash can and I just sat next to the trash can, waiting to throw up until someone else woke up, until a parent woke up. And then called my mom. And I was so nauseous that like, it was uncontrollable. I was constantly throwing up. And, you would think, okay, that like sounds like a flu, sounds like a stomach bug,
flu, maybe terrible, like worst level food poisoning of some sort.
Right.
But you say you're crawling out of bed. Were you literally like, were you having that tingling sensation in your legs at that point?
Yeah. So that's why, like, that was the thing that didn't add up with the flu, was that my toes and feet were like, it was like crawling with ants. And that was the feeling. That's the only way I know how to describe it. Like ants crawling all over my feet. And like, I didn't have any balance. Like I couldn't hold myself. That's like weird. Like who has a flu like that? That was sort of bizarre. And so my mom came and she helped me, into the car. We went straight to the hospital and like, I'm just like throwing up the whole way. Like nothing was calming this reaction down. We get to the pediatrician and of course they take me right in. And the doctor like does an examination and she's kind of going like, oh, it's probably like an inner ear infection. And my mom, God bless her, mom's intuition, like there's nothing like a mother's intuition. And she's going, this is not an ear infection. Like, no, like that doesn't fly. Like this is not an ear infection.
I'm sure your mom was just like thinking this could be best case scenario. She's got a really bad ear infection. Right. We'll get some medicine. We'll get some antibiotics. We'll get out of here. Every mother's going to be hoping for the best right there. Yeah.
Yeah. But she was like, no, there's no way. And she told the doctor that. She's like, there's no way this is an ear infection. Right. Like that doesn't add up. And so
wait, hold on. I misunderstood, Kaley. I thought your mom was telling the doctor, like, oh, I think she has an ear. Other way around?
Other way around. The doctor's telling my mom that.
Oh my God.
And my mom's like, no. Like, no. And that's where like, I want every parent in the world to hear this is like, you are the authority, not the doctor. Okay.
100%.
There can be great doctors, but still, like, you have to trust your own body, especially as a parent. You trust your own voice. And so she's going, no, there's no way this is an ear infection. So the doctor says, okay, I'll be right back. And she leaves. We don't know where she's going. And in the meantime, I'm in the office with my mom. I'm laying down. Definitely couldn't sit up. If I was sitting up, I was throwing up. So I'm laying down. My mom's like just holding my hand and stroking my hand. And she's just looking at me, you know, trying to be soothing. And all of a sudden her face just goes ghost white. And I'm like, what? And she's like, nothing. And I'm like, okay, you're like a terrible liar. Like, what, you know? And she's like, Kaley, are you moving your eyes? I'm like, no. You're sure you're not moving your eyes? No. And she's like, Kaley, your eyes are moving. I'm like, what are you talking about? So that symptom is called nystagmus, and it's the eyes, right? You mentioned eyelids. It's the eyes themselves flickering right to left. So my whole world was spinning and just spinning. And that's why I was nauseous. That's why I was constantly throwing up. So if I closed my eyes, I was fine. So for the next 30 days, because I had that symptom for the next 30 days, I kept my eyes closed. It was the only way to function.
How often was it happening? Was it sporadic? Was it pretty consistent? I mean, that just sounds like that's like a nightmare, man.
Yeah, it is a nightmare.
How long was that going on?
There was no break. 24/7.
So if your eyes were open during that period of time, your world was spinning around.
Yep.
Oh
I can remember, like it was yesterday. I remember the ceiling. I was at my best friend's. That's where I was having a sleepover. And I remember her ceiling. She has like a living room.
I'm getting nauseous thinking about it.
It's very nauseating. And the living room is actually circular. It's like octagonal, like the roof, the ceiling. And like, I remember it. And I didn't know how to, like, didn't make sense to me. You know, when people when you get really super drunk and you get like the spins, that was 24/7 for 30 days. Like, it was insane.
That's insane, man. That is just insane. That's like torture.
Yeah.
So what finally was what was the breakthrough moment?
Where it stopped?
Yeah.
So this is the crazy part about MS is that, like, there's really no predicting what is going to make the shift. And so literally after 30 days, one day I woke up and that just wasn't happening. And I had gone into this practice of my mom where every morning she'd get my brother after school and then she'd come next to my bed and we would go like through my body. We'd go from my toes to my head to see what is working. What does it feel like? What's moving? What do I have control over? And eyes would be the last. The last thing I would do would be open my eyes. Is it still happening? Right?
Did you wear one of those, like, those what people wear them to sleep? Did you have one of those on?
No, I just always kept them closed. Like an eye mask.
Wow. Yeah.
I just always kept them closed. Yeah.
Wow.
So I remember the day that I opened my eyes and I was like, oh, it's not spinning, right? And she's relieved and I'm relieved and I'm looking at my mom like, but there are two of you. So then I had double vision for the next 30 days.
Okay. Well, an improvement, but still a high concern.
Yeah, definitely. Once you say that, you're like, still concerning. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, still concerning. Now, this whole time I didn't have a diagnosis because I was so young. And so the symptoms basically the most classic onset of MS is when you're going to see something both show up visually and in mobility, right? In the legs. That's very classic that you have the two come together as initial onset. So it was classic, right? Classic onset. But I was a child. And that was almost unheard of. There was one other child in the state of California ever in history that was also diagnosed with MS. So doctors didn't want to diagnose it. We were going to the best specialists. They did not want to diagnose a child. It didn't fit in with their image and everything that they knew about this disease. And they also didn't have treatment. Like, what were they going to tell me? How you have MS, I have nothing to offer you, because none of the drugs had ever been used with a child before. So there was a lot of hesitation to diagnose. And of course, for us, it's like, it would have been a relief. Like, I just needed to know what was going on. I wanted to know I wasn't dying. I wanted to know, that it wasn't worse, that it's something manageable, So when you're in the dark, it's terrifying. You know, people say no news is good news. That is so far from reality. Like, no, when you're in that situation, you want to know.
You want to know something, because then how do you solve if you don't know what you're solving against? Yeah.
Yeah. And something like that is so scary, you know, to then go like, okay, well, I'm relieved my eyes aren't spinning, but now everything is double. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, what's next? And is this ever going to get better?
Completely. All of those things. And by the way, meanwhile, the tingling that was in my seat went all the way up my legs. So I was so uncomfortable. It was very awkward walking. I was so off balance. So I was constantly needing help for anything and everything, right? Because of the eyes, my eyes were closed. I was being fed. I was being showered, like everything. And then just to walk around, I needed help.
Were you also, I remember in our first conversation that you were still in school, right? Through most of this. So how are you doing that? Just managing it the best you can. I mean, what more could you do?
Yeah. I mean, I missed a significant amount of school. I missed about 60 days of school. I still hadn't gotten my diagnosis. It took 3 months to get the diagnosis. I missed 60 days of school. Once it shifted to double vision, I know this sounds crazy, probably to other kids who are resenting school right now, but I missed it. You know, I missed school. I missed being able to be with friends. I wanted to just feel like a kid, you know? And so I would go sometimes just for a couple hours. And I was really blessed to have an amazing school that was really like understanding and just supportive and just understood like
working with you as it goes, because they're just getting information like to see how you're progressing. But at the end of the day, like school is important, but the most important thing was your well-being at that point. It's like,
yeah, well, you and I know that, but not many schools know that. You know, they could have gone a different direction. And a lot of times I get calls from kids going through, from families where kids going through a diagnosis to try to intervene with the school, because a lot of times schools are really not flexible and not understanding. And it's like, this is real life. Like, get over yourselves. Like, grades don't matter and tests don't matter. It's just like this person's life and health.
Right. I can take this at a later date when my health is finally figured out.
Yeah.
Can you share? So the organization that you founded when you were 14, I believe it was officially, right?
Yeah.
When you were 14, is that still what exists today, or did the name change? Did the idea change? I mean,
yeah, so it's called Youth Against MS, YAMS, and it does not exist today. It continued for many, many years, even after I left. I went to college and like other kids took over, which was very cool. And then a couple of my friends took over for a while. And it was really successful. We grew to 10 chapters across the nation. It was like a really big thing. And then at a certain point, you know, my life just shifted, unfolded, and I wasn't on top of it. Like, so it kind of dissipated and dissolved, but it went on for quite a number of years, which is awesome.
And then that's part of the story too. 12 years later. So you were in your mid-20s. Then you no longer had MS, correct?
Well, I set out to heal myself a little bit more than 12 years later. I have to think of the math. It's a little bit more like 16 years, something like that.
Yeah. So for 16 years though, were they able to administer any medicine even though you were young?
That's its own funky story. But yeah, I did. I did immediately get on treatment. Not that any doctor was willing to like recommend, but I was at the time a very big believer in medicine. And I wanted some relief. And so I did my own research and I found one of the medications I was a 12-year-old reading medical research. I just want to put it out there for all the people who are going, well, I don't know. I just have to trust the doctors. Like, if a 12-year-old can sit and find a journal online, we had modem, with dial-up, AOL.
Yeah, I can hear it in my head right now.
Yeah, exactly, right? So if I could sit there and spend the 7.5 minutes to wait to download the journal article and then read it, not knowing half the words, and sit with an encyclopedia to like look it all up. Like, you can do this, educate yourself. It's so important. And so one of the 3 medications that was available had not had any evidence of impacting reproduction. And of course, I was like, I'm a kid. I want to have a family one day. Like I didn't, So I narrowed it down to that, but I still didn't know enough. And no one would answer my questions because they were like, we can't, you're a minor. Like we can't advise this. Like there's a risk here. There's a liability. I called the pharmaceutical company. And I was like, I need to talk to someone and like ask some questions. And they totally like, they thought they were so threatened that like there was like maybe a lawsuit coming against them. It took me so long to convince them. I was like, I'm a 12-year-old. I read the research. I need help. Like you have to help me. And they were like in awe. They were like, then I asked all my questions. They're like, how did you know to say all these things? I'm like, this has been days.
This is my life. This is my livelihood. But yeah, that's incredible that you were doing that. Because, I think a lot of times at 12, I mean, I can't even imagine what I would have done at 12 years old. I don't know. I used to be scared to go get a shot at the doctor's office. So I can't imagine what the heck I would have been doing at 12.
Mike, wait till you hear this. So that medication was a daily injection.
Oh.
Yeah. I had to give myself daily injection. So yeah, if you ever need a shot, let me know. I can come do it.
Oh my God. I just want to give you a big hug for everything that you were going through during this whole time. So you had to do the daily shots for how long? Like 12, 14 years?
That was until about midway through high school. And I started getting really, really sick in high school. So like it helped calm things down to a certain extent, but not completely. And then partway through high school, I started getting really sick. And so we switched medications. And so that was a shot once a week, but then it came with flu symptoms once a week. It was just like, there was always something.
Were you ever doing, I know my brother it's periodic, I think twice a year, maybe once a year, his fusion shots. Was that around yet? Was that science?
So the one that's twice a year, I think is Ocrevus, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not as on top of it anymore, so God, I don't have to be. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the twice a year. I did eventually get to infusions once a month, and that was when I was on Tysabri, it's called. And today, by the way, there's way more medication out there. There's so much more hope today. It's a much brighter prognosis today if someone's diagnosed. Because there's much better
way more information. Yeah. Which is awesome, which is what we love to hear. But aside from that though, I want you to share, go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say that's really what inspired, like really motivated me to take a different approach in my late 20s, because even with medication and all the interventions and a healthy lifestyle and a good mindset, like all of that, there were still symptoms. Everything was still unpredictable, and it wasn't enough. And I sort of got to a stage where I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't live where I don't know what's going to happen one day to the next. And I'm going to infusions and like not feeling well for an entire day, or doing the shot and getting the flu once a week. Like, I'm just like, this is not a life. And that's me. Like, I was doing a lot, right? Like it's not like I was hanging out in the cave, like, hiding. I was living a very full life. And yet it still felt like this can't be my life. I don't want this to be my life. I don't want this to be the life for my children. Like I had to figure it out. And I decided, I remember the morning that I decided I will figure out what is going on in my body and how to heal it. I had this inner knowing, by the way, from a very younger age. You asked about my initial doctor appointments. So the first time I saw my MRI, which is a scan of the brain, it was like covered in these like white dots, and that's scar tissue on the brain. And I remember saying to the neurologist at the time, who was no longer a neurologist, no longer a doctor, his license was taken away.
Interesting.
I had nothing to do with it, but I'm really happy about it.
Wow.
He should not have been a doctor. So I remember asking him as a 12-year-old, I said, I looked at, I was pointing to the scans very uncomfortably, right? Because they're spinning for me at the time. And I was just like, can it heal? Like, can that ever go away? And he was just like, no. Like, just no. Didn't skip a beat, didn't pause to think like, what does this 12-year-old need to hear? Just like, no, they'll never heal. And I was really I was given a gift in that moment because the feeling was like as if like sound waves like bounced off of me. And it was just like, it was almost like it did not penetrate. And I just had this inner voice that said, that's impossible. Like this body creates human life. Like that's impossible. But I was 12.
It's like you heard him say, he said no. And this feeling came within you of, you don't believe, but I do. Right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, you don't believe that they can heal, but I'm going to figure out how to heal it. Yeah.
Totally. And within six months, by the way, within 6 months, which I only learned much later, I was doing a report in college. I came to just be obsessed with biology and neurobiology, and I wanted to understand the body. Look, from a young age, I'm looking at the brain, you know? And so I was doing a presentation in I think it was my physiology class in college. Anyways, and I wanted to present on neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity tells you that the brain can heal, that the brain can create new neural connections, right? Which he was telling me that's impossible. And as I was doing that research, I went and looked and I was like, I'm so curious, like when was this research done? Like when was the first study done on neuroplasticity? It was within 6 months of my first symptoms at Stanford University.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like, he's saying no. And this is also, please hear this, people. Doctors can tell you, and this is not to bash doctors, just please understand, like medicine is medicine. They only know what they know until they prove otherwise. And so he was right, according to the evidence that he had at the time. It was only 6 months later that he was proven wrong. Like if the diagnosis was 6 months later, he would be like, oh, actually, you know, maybe, I don't know. But, research at Stanford as of this week says that it's possible. Let's explore that. Like, how different would my life have looked, right?
Right.
So, but I knew it. My innate knowing knew it. And I believe that all of us know at some level, even if it was that voice was then. It took me 16, 17 years to even come back to that voice and go, okay, now I have to figure this out. I didn't know what to do with it then. You know what I mean?
Well, you get into mind-body healing, and that's what I really want. I feel like it's unfortunate we're kind of running a little bit out of time. This is the big kicker. It's like, all right, we built everything up. We shared your story. Yeah. People are hearing about no. Everything that you just shared needed to be heard. But here's the amazing part. You get into mind-body healing. I don't remember if our first conversation did we talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza?
I don't remember if we did, but he's, the leader in the field.
Right. So I got to get him on the show too to share like some of his testimonials, which would be incredible. But share how you got into that. Like there had to be like a little bit of a light where you're like, ooh, okay, I'm gonna take this and run with it. And then how did it actually did you see it taking shape in your own life? And then how can anybody who's listening, what do you encourage them to do? So I know that's a lot, but I really want to get hit on the mind body. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I didn't know about Dr. Joe at the time. I hadn't heard of him, even though he already had, a couple books out and whatnot, but I hadn't heard of him. But basically, I believe once you like make a decision in life, the guides will appear. You get supported, and so I was connected with this incredible therapist. Actually, her name is Shelly Malka in Jerusalem, and she taught me a modality that this is a great way for anyone to get started, called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. It's called tapping, and so she taught me the concept that our body is storing our emotions if we're not processing them. That was totally foreign to me. Not only was it foreign to me that we're storing emotions, it was foreign to me that there were feelings I wasn't feeling. Like I would have told you I was very in touch with myself. I was so completely numb and dissociated, and I had no idea. I had no idea. I was the poster child for optimism and gratitude and resilience. And like, no one would have guessed it. I wouldn't have guessed it. Like, it's so weird as I look back to think that like, wait, what? I wasn't like feeling my feelings. Like, but how was that possible? I was so in touch with myself.
It's like this big door was shut and you had the key to it, but you had to figure out how to unlock it. I want everybody to pause right now and realize that what Kaley is talking about right here isn't only for people who are going through MS or any diagnosis and like trying to heal in that way. This is just everybody. Everybody has a soul. Everybody has their best version of themselves that I feel God intends on you or the universe or whatever you do believe in. But like we have a purpose. Everybody has this purpose to their highest level of functionality. And a lot of times there's barriers that are put there. I think there's barriers that we accidentally put there ourselves. There's societal barriers. There's cultural things. There's what we learn in school, what we don't learn in school. There's a lot of reasons that people start to get a little bit disconnected with themselves at the core. And so this is not just like how you really muscled through your MS, but anybody right now tuning in, this is for you and this is for me. So with that, I'm like dialed in 100%.
Yeah. And do the work now. Like, do not wait till the body is kicking and screaming because the emotions were stuck for so long or they start to spill over in symptoms. Like, don't wait for your body to have to get your attention in that way. Do it now. And I promise you, it is so much easier to feel your feelings to like right now than when a body is screaming from physical pain. You're like, but I'm in pain. I don't have energy for it. Well, you have to. You got to
like heal it when it's in the bruise stage and not when it's like a complete like vicious injury, right? Like,
exactly. So that was the first step of my journey. And there was a lot more that came. It was about a 2-year process that I was in of really complete healing. And really just understanding how to feel my feelings was like the first pathway. There was a lot I had to work through. There was a lot I had to understand why my body created it in the first place and that it actually was trying to help me. And I just had to learn a whole new way of being. And that is important to understand the mind-body connection. And one of the things I teach in my course is like step-by-step how to heal the body and how to relax the nervous system and allow the nervous system to then do what it knows how to do, which is to heal. Like we have an innate healing capacity in us, but the way we're all living, right? We're all in fight or flight. The moment you read a news headline, that's it. The potential for you to be out of pain or for your immune system to function, all of that gets cut off immediately when there's any anxiety, fear, all of that, right? So like COVID was such a disaster because everybody's reading all this fear and terror about this and like, you're shutting off your immune systems. You need to boost your immune system. Like, I was like, stop listening to the news, but then everyone was obsessed with it. It was crazy. Anyways, that's a whole separate rant, but the mind and body have to work together. It was built that way. We can prove this through biology, through neurology, like it's all there. Anytime we have an emotion, there's a hormonal response. Those hormones have impact on how our bodies function, how our digestion works, how our heart races, like everything is connected, how the eyes function. So it's crazy to think, but we have to feel our feelings in a healthy way. Tapping is the quickest, easiest way to learn to do so. You don't have to sit and journal for 5 years or sit in front of a therapist and cry it out. I'm a therapist. I can tell you, talk therapy, not so incredible. So
where can people learn EFT tapping? Actually, a friend of mine, shout out to Gail Jones, she's been on the show before, and she actually did a couple tapping sessions with me, and I did feel like a release of tension, and I did feel like very clear afterwards. Now, your next question should be, well, Mike, why don't you do it every day? Well, here we are with a great reminder, brick over the head moment, like the dude from Home Alone, right? Like I got to get it hit over my head. I'm going to get back to it. But if someone's hearing about this for the first time, where can do you have like a resource, like a guide or something or a tool?
Super amazing in this day and age. Download an app. It's called the Tapping Solution. And you can tap at any time on any topic. There's fear, there's anxiety. I want affirmations. It's just feeling stressed, feeling overwhelmed, right there in the palm of your hand, called the Tapping Solution. And then if anyone is living with symptoms, I have a free webinar that describes the 4 ways in which the mind and body are communicating. So there's the science of it, and then it kind of takes it from there, so you can understand in a lot more detail than what we're talking about here. Did I answer that?
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered all your questions.
No, you absolutely did. And I'm just, I'm going to go back and take all my notes and take action on it. But actually, as you're talking, I'm thinking about all the different people I want to connect you with to get onto their podcast and just get this information out. And then here's my invite for you to come back on the show, because I feel like today was really your backstory, your inspiring story as a 12, 13, 14-year-old starting this organization, helping others before you even knew if you could be helped, which is amazing. Getting a community, the importance of those that are around you, your mom's support through it all. And the fact that you didn't accept the answer no at such a young age. You researched it. You called the pharmaceutical companies. It's like, you are just awesome. You are just such... I've had great people on the show, and there's a lot of awesome people. But like at this point, I just want to say to you, I'm just blessed and grateful that I got to meet you and get to know you and have you as a friend in my circle, because like you really do inspire me. And I hope my brother watches this. I'm going to send it to him, and I hope that he takes some action too on some of the natural ways that you can heal. Medicine sometimes may be necessary. I don't think you and I would argue that, but there's, like you said, these healing and EFT, and heal it before it gets a bruise is like the big takeaway from me here. I know we only have a couple more minutes. Do you have to run right now, or can you talk for a couple more minutes?
I'm here.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to have all your resources clickable in the show notes so people can get your website, any of your workshops, the tools, the resources you got going on. I'll even link that. I want to make sure we link that app too. So if people want to do the tapping, that they can do that EFT tapping. But as a kind of a takeaway message right now, people are going to probably find this video from searching. I'm going to have obviously like the keywords in it so people find it. Healing and healing from MS. Someone's going through it. Maybe it's not a 12-year-old girl. It could be, it could be anybody. But they're really struggling. They're trying to find answers, and they're not 100% sure. They just need to hear a message from someone who's been through it. What would you like to tell that person that's tuning in right now?
Wow. I'm thinking back to, what I needed to hear back then. The first thing I'll say is the thing that actually changed the entire experience for me when I was a kid was that someone said, you're going to be okay. So I want you to know that you're going to be okay. And I think I really needed to hear that to even consider any other options around this, right? And then I also want to tell you that what's happening is not random. It's not like all of a sudden you woke up and your body just isn't working. And on the one hand, that's less scary. On the other hand, it could be more scary, then what led to this? But if you're willing to show up for this experience, it also holds the keys to the greatest life you could have ever imagined. Because if you can lean into this process, if you can lean into the experience, you'll discover your real self. You'll discover who you are, why your body's bringing you on this journey. And in that process, your body can relax and calm down. It doesn't have to be a life sentence. And one thing we didn't say, and I think you really need to hear, everyone needs to hear, is that this wasn't just, I know, you have no idea. I know dozens of people who are living completely symptom-free with MS, who have healed themselves, but it doesn't get the recognition. And the miracle that happened to me, there's a miracle of the healing. And the second miracle is that doctors actually changed my diagnosis, not saying you never had MS, just saying, yeah, you just don't have it now. And that's pretty unheard of. And so, and yet they have a category for it. It's called no evidence of disease activity. No one told me this. So I'm telling you now. And if you can know if someone is going through the diagnosis, you can know now at the beginning of your journey, that's actually possible. And it has been studied. There's actually research on it. Lean into that. Focus on that. Just focus on that. Don't focus on what could go wrong. Focus on what could go right.
I love that. That's a great lesson for anybody in life. Focus on what can go right. And what you focus on and spend energy on, Kaley, you know this, you're smiling. That's what you get. The energy you put in and what you focus on, what you can do. I just had a whole episode with James Bracken. Him and I talked about eliminating I can't from our vocabulary and talking about what we can do, because the second that you say can't, or you think about the negative, and my example in that conversation was like, if I tell you, don't think about a green elephant, you're now thinking about the green elephant. So if you're thinking about that this is a life sentence and that there's no way out, you're thinking about that, you're focusing on it, your energy's there, but thinking, hey, Kaley had, what was it called when there's no diagnosis? There's like a term for it.
No evidence of disease activity. They call it NEDA.
NEDA. So NEDA is possible for everybody, right? And so that's what the focus needs to be on right there. And so how you feeling today? Are you able to do like more physical activities, sports, things that you enjoy? Like, how is your body now?
Anything and everything. I've been completely symptom-free for, I've lost track, 10 years, more than 10 years, like completely.
Oh
I can do it. And not only that, my big focus, I told you, is like, I didn't want my family to live with this. I've got a 16-month-old now. He has so much energy, right? And I was under the weather last week because I'm still in a physical body and we just moved. So, right, the stress, of course, is going to impact. And I just had no energy to even pick him up. And it was this is going to sound weird, but such a beautiful experience and opportunity to see what my life would have been like to be a mom with MS. To not be able to pick up my child, to not be able to run all after him. And that was just one day. I was under the weather for one day and now I'm fine, you know?
And you switched on that gratitude of like, because a lot of times what happens is when things are great, we forget to be grateful. When things are bad and we're trying to get back to being, having a great day or feeling well or the things that we're grateful for, it usually takes a moment for us to reflect, right? So like you said, before it gets bad, take care of it so you can be more in the positive, spend more time there and that energy. Man, that makes me so happy. Like I just the fact that you got through it, and not only got through it, but you're thriving, you're doing well, you're educating, you're teaching other people. And this is just an inspiring message for anybody, MS or anybody going through different things. Of course, I want people to realize that the mind-body healing is not this like rah, Kaley's living in a cave somewhere, meditating 24 hours a day. That's all fine and well, but like, this is real. And having you on today was just a great example of one story, your story, of how this is a very real thing. So next time I have you on, I think we pick it up more from like the healing, the practices, maybe a little bit more practical day-to-day things that you do.
Totally. Yes. I would
and what you
that.
recommend. And then, like I said, people can also connect with you. And let's get this message out to as many people as we can. We didn't even hit on any of our ads today because how do I stop Kaley? Like, how do I'm not going to stop you in the middle of your story. You're telling me, that you got, your world spinning around you and then the double vision. I'm like, excuse me for one moment. We're going to get to our advertiser. So we didn't even get to him, but I'm going to talk about him right now. This podcast wouldn't be possible without our team at Social Chameleon. That is the company that I founded back in 2017. Just go to socialchameleon.us. Got that in the show notes for you. And you can transform your podcast so it doesn't look just like everybody else's show. You want great audio, great video. You want it on all the major players like YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We help you get it on there. We do distribution, write great show notes for you. We handle it. All you have to do is press record and we do the rest. Socialchameleon.us. And then also,
I needed to hear that. I just want you to know I needed to hear that. I'm relaunching the podcast, so I'm really glad you said that.
Let's
we keep going.
We'll talk. Happy to help. Another thing about Social Chameleon is we really work with people that we feel part of their team, like we're an extension of them, and we really want to serve. And many of our shows are entrepreneurial, positive-minded, healing. I'm thinking of a show we produced called Thrive More. I mean, we're all about that positive energy. Mic'd Up is that exact, like in that vein. Thrive More. We got a number of shows along the way with Carl Buccellato. It's a great show about a lot of life lessons and blessings.
Wow.
And so we love to do that. Like, it's not that we just produce any kind of podcast. We're very intentional. So that's Social Chameleon. The other thing I'm very grateful for is Navigator bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is not my forte. It's one of the things that every month when it comes time to really focus on, and I say every month, you should really be doing it more actively. I have Navigator Bookkeeping. So shout out to Nate, Luann, and the whole team over there. Navigatingyourbooks.com. Check them out. Once I handed it over to them 2-3 years ago, not surprisingly, my business has taken off. It's more than multiple, revenue year after year. And a lot of that is you have to know your numbers to know what you're solving for. Just like you needed to know what you were solving for medically, right? Or healing. So if you don't know the health of your business because you don't know your numbers, it's really hard to build on. So once I got Navigator Bookkeeping going, I haven't looked back, and we meet monthly. There's different plans you can have, but I really like to do the face-to-face with Nate, and we go through everything. It's almost like going to the doctor. Tells you about the health, shows you the red things that are blinking and what you need to be focused on. And a lot of times the conversation's great. Like, Mike, things are going well. Just keep doing what you're doing. And that feels good. You like to hear that too. You said it earlier. No news is good news. I actually have said that a few times, and I do kind of believe in that. But at the same time, when it comes to your health, emotional state, your business, you need news. You need to know what the heck's going on. You like the weather. Yeah. You need to know if it's clear or not. Am I going outside with a sweater, a jacket, a shovel? Right. What the hell? What do we got outside? Especially living in Buffalo my whole life. Like, we needed to know the weather report 24/7 to know what was going on that day. So, going back to wrapping my thought, go to Navigator Bookkeeping. Actually, navigatingyourbooks.com is the website. So I'll have that there for you. And so last thoughts, Kaley, how do you want to land the plane, as you and I talked about earlier? And we'll get our audience onto the rest of their day.
Oh man. I thought we already landed. Because now I'm like, okay, I'm in my head. I'm like, I got to go to navigatorbooks.com, navigatingyourbooks.com. Like all the things.
Well, I'll say this. Let me just say this. I'll give us a topic to end here. BGBG on my mug. You see it on my hat and my t-shirts that I rock. BGBG means be great and be grateful. So I'm grateful for you being on the show, but I just love to hear like 3 things that you're most grateful for right now in your life.
Honestly, this interview we just had, I'm feeling really grateful for. Actually, I'm feeling really emotional. It's just like, it's always a gift to kind of pause and reflect and realize where you're at. And also to think about like all the people who will hear this conversation and how it wasn't random that you and I connected. And I'm so glad we got to have a conversation again.
Yeah. I forgot how we originally connected, but whoever made that happen, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you remember? I think it was Todd. Was it Todd Armstrong?
Yeah.
Todd Armstrong delivers again, man. I got to give him a call and give him some love.
He's awesome. And so I just feel really grateful for that. And especially like, I think the way you listen, like I feel really seen. And it's just, so I'm feeling grateful for this right now. I'm so grateful for my son. Like, that's just the greatest. And what else I want to say? And you know what? I'm really grateful for my family. Right after you and I recorded the first time, my father almost died. And we've been like living a whole new life since. I mean, really, like, he basically had like an NDE, which is its own conversation one day. But it's just, he got a second chance, and we're really leaning all the way into that. So I'm feeling really grateful for family right now.
Absolutely. And again, it's those things that we can take for granted, you know. And I lost, my dad passed away December 13th was 4 years. So as we record this, it's the 19th. So
wow, Mike. Oh my goodness.
Less than a week ago, it's been 4 years. But the 4 years doesn't feel like 4 years. I never fully got a hold of it, I feel like. And then just kind of you stay busy and things happen. And then a year hits and like it hits you all over again. You're like, I still never really. But I didn't mean to take away from you telling the story about your dad. But I just want to say that if I can encourage anybody tuning in, hearing Kaley talk about nearly losing her dad, being grateful for her son and new connections, that when you have beautiful people in your life and family and you know, maybe you're not as close to them as you once were, and everybody always starts in the household and moves out, and your brothers and your sisters and, you know, your parents, whether they're together or separated, like my daughter has, me and her mom are now, you know, divorced and things. So like life looks a little bit different for everybody, but to not forget and to remind those that we love them. text them, call them, tell them that you love them. People need to hear it, and I mentioned Carl Bucciolato, one of our clients. He says it at the end of his episodes. Tell someone you love them today. Give them a big bear hug, right? So I just want to give you a big bear hug and share the love. And just anybody who's listening right now, think about a few people that you want to say, I love you, and I just appreciate you being in my life, and be grateful for it, and go and take action. It's the holiday season right now. It's before Christmas as we record. I know this is going to come out in the new year. What better way to kick off the new year than people realizing that they can heal from within? And we want to start from that healthy spot and build on top of it. And you can't really build on a foundation if the foundation has all this rubble, on it. You got to get it out.
We got to clear out the basement first.
Yeah, it's a good visual, but it's so true. So this episode is going to get us kicked off in the new year, and I really appreciate you. And I'm going to have you on again, like I said, multiple times. You'll get to meet Dave, our co-host, and just share more of your journey. Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for that. I didn't know when it was going to air. I'm excited it's going to be the new year. In February, I have a virtual summit, and it's going to be an amazing opportunity for people to be able to hear about different paths to healing, right? Just to know it's so possible to hear other people's stories, their own journeys. The other thing I want to comment on, you said not to take away from, what I shared about my father. I know that's not random. Nothing's random, Mike, right? Like you and I know this. And so it's all connected.
I think it came up on purpose, and I'm really passionate about healthy grieving and how people grieve. And it's something we're all going to face. We're all going to face loss. And maybe one day we do an episode on that and just help people through that. And it touches home for you, I
would love to do that. I never finished my thought. The reason I brought up my dad and reminding people to tell those that you love them was that I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my dad, and I never got a chance to say I love you for the last time, or that I appreciate you and that I'm going to do everything I can. Like, Dad, everything you taught me, everything that you believe in, I'm just going to continue that on with my daughter. And I never really got a chance to tell him any of that. So, if other people thank you. If other people are listening and have the ability to do it, don't miss the opportunity. Yeah, do it.
Totally. Yes. Do it while you can. It's so important.
Yes. Yeah. And so I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas and your whole family.
I do Hanukkah, but
yeah, Hanukkah. I mean, I say Merry Christmas and I forget, but to me, it just means,
Happy
everything.
holiday.
Yeah. Everything that comes with it. Right.
Yeah.
Everything that comes with it. It's not necessarily, obviously we celebrate the holiday a little bit differently, but it's about the same core principles of giving, not just gifts, but giving yourself, giving to those who you can bless. There's always someone who you can turn around and bless someone. You don't have to have a lot to do it.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like the
world.
Hashtag reason for the season, the whole thing. So just wishing you and your family, and so excited that your son is doing well and that you get to spend that quality time with him every day. It's just amazing. So keep the blessings going into the new year. I'll get you on again. We can pick up the conversation. We got so much more we can talk about. Thank you. So, hey, be great and be grateful. And I'm grateful for you being on the show. Keep on moving on.